se toivotaan.
So, welcome back everybody. My name is Pertl and I will be your host for the next session here, how to boost businesses with international talent. So the conference so far has been quite an exciting one, at least for me, never mind the afternoon dip after lunch. We all feel that. I guess it's like a wedding. Because in a wedding, you're having conversations with people just like you're having right now, over coffee and cake and such, and then somebody rushes in and asks you to stop what you're doing and get back to the program. So that's what we'll do. Right, before we move to a few company examples, practices from real life, let me share something that we are doing at Future Place Leadership. So I represent a management consultancy where we work with talent attraction. So if you had Nikolai Lubansky from Copenhagen here and currently in the other room telling you how to work with the management of a talent ecosystem, well, that's what we do as well, but from a consultancy point of view. So we have the privilege to work with places, cities, regions, clusters, on what can they do in terms of services, service design, strategy, managing their multiple stakeholder ecosystem in order to be more attractive to talents. International, domestic, doesn't matter. How can you attract and retain talents? That's the central question. And when this, here we are. So at this stage, by the conference, it's probably a no-brainer that talents are needed everywhere, be it ICT, tech talent, or nurses, medical doctors, what have you. And if we look at the picture globally, then there's a talent deficit. If you look to the left-hand side, there's a talent surplus in some countries like India and elsewhere, where talent will probably move from to countries where there's a talent deficit. The question is who will capture that chain, who will benefit from that movement of talents? Where will we go? And we argue that there's a current and growing competition with cities for that. And if you look at, we had some interesting examples from this morning, from the States, where an international Indian talent was denied of a visa, and the ecosystem got a bit too defensive and weird, so the guy just left and started his business in India instead, and created 6,000 new jobs. So not that great for America, perhaps. There's an interesting book that we would invite you to read. Enrico Moresi has based on his research, drawn the correlation that if you have a highly skilled talent, now one thing is the jobs that he or she can create directly with the company and growing the business, but you have service providers for these people. You have the dentists, the teachers, the nurses, the kindergarten teachers that all need to service this person. So if you hire or create or import a highly skilled person, research shows that he or she can create up to 5 additional jobs. So a bit of food for thought for those conversations. And when we talk about employers, companies, big and small, employer branding, how companies can attract international talent, they can rely on the place, brand, the reputation as well. Because imagine, put yourself into the shoes of a smaller company who doesn't have that reputation yet, has a small arsenal of tools, marketing firepower, etc., to tell the lovely, great and promising story of them. Instead, they can use the place brand. For example, like Supercell, no small company, but still can use the brand, the reputation of Helsinki, because that's where they're based. That's where the international talent will come and live. So there's a whole set of arguments, issues, questions that need to be discussed and presented and talked through when any company attracts any sort of talent to any given city. We work here. Where is here? How do I get there? Do I get an apartment? Is it like Stockholm where you cannot find an apartment? Stuff like that. So being in a place matters, and you can use and you should use, and in any case take into account the place brand that you work with. Stockholm does some great things as well, however. It is a great place, but it has its own housing shortage problem. Very many cities have that. Nonetheless, that's an issue they work with. But in the meanwhile, they offer their Twitter handle, the Move to Stockholm Twitter handle that belongs to Invest in Stockholm, and has thus a wide group of followers. Every week, they give that Twitter handle to be curated to a company that's based in Stockholm. So throughout that week, they have an open mic, a platform to talk about the company, what they do, what services, products, games, etc. they are working on. And as can be seen from sponsor sales, they enjoy a nice team spirit, etc. So it's fun to work here, it's nice, you have company values. And that they are looking for a product designer currently, that they are hiring, come work in Stockholm. So Stockholm is helping with services big and small, quite simple and effective and cost-effective as well, helping their startups to grow. There are interesting initiatives here and there that we as a company like to observe and learn from and tell the others as well. Vaasa in Finland is looking for 10,000 new people to work there by the year 2020. So they created an ambassador, energy ambassador program where in 12 weeks they gave a person 12 different jobs, 12 different companies, and that was that in a nutshell. So it was a fun experience. The person got 30,000 euros, that's a pretty good summer job, and got to go through many different companies and blog and write in social media the hell out of that experience. What great exposure. So they did that the following year as well, globally, because these companies in that cluster have global offices everywhere. If we venture outside the Nordic region, we have, for example, Berlin, the Paul That Sexy place where punk meets tech, and not even remember all those taglines. It's an interesting place. But one thing that they do as a service, Berlin Partner, the organization, has started a Start Alliance network, which is, in its essence, very, very simple. It's currently New York, Paris, Shanghai, Tel Aviv, Berlin, Warsaw, just joined, or will join this month. So the idea is simple. Co-working spaces, incubators, accelerators, science parks, they can build bridges and channels and tunnels, if you want, between these cities. So if you're working there as a startup and you want to go to any of these cities, you have a channel, you have a plug-and-play solution. You apply and you get to go there because the other city will have reserved, as a part of the program, a set of mentors for you. You can access the mentors just like that. You get to work there at the co-working space for 3 weeks. You get contacts, connections to the ecosystem, etc. So it's a designed process. And that's actually nearly all what it takes to be a partner in this program. So Helsinki, Tampere, Turku, any city can really join it. So yeah. And finally, what we as a company do on top of research and design processes is we are doers as well. So if there's been a bit of talk about talent mobility and cooperation, so why have a war on talent in this region because we could do cooperation instead. That's easier said than done. But if you think about the others looking at this region as a Nordic blood on the map, somewhere up there is the north, then why not present the north, the Nordic countries, as one playground, a larger value offer to international talent? So we have in this program 4 different cities that would otherwise compete with themselves: Reykjavik, Kristiansand in Norway, Copenhagen and Gothenburg. And they all have 5 talent ambassadors that we chose to the program, and they do social media posts about why they, an international person from Iran, from the USA, emigrated to Reykjavik or the other cities. What's there for them? It's a great life quality, some Nordic stuff, it's a great career. You should come too. And then people sign up to know more, to join the Nordics and move over. But that's meant to serve as a small introduction from me. Before I invite to the stage the 2 very interesting companies to talk about how they work with international talent and how it matters to them, we would like to ask for your opinion here in this session as well. We will have a set of questions we would like your feedback on. So you will get to vote and comment on a few things. So there's a lovely thing called Screen.io, which we will be using at the end of the following presentations. So it works in a simple way. You get out your mobile phone or tablet device, you open your web browser, you type in the address screen.io/boost. That's it. You don't need to log in with your Facebook or anything. Screen.io.boost, and then you will arrive at the page of this event, and you'll get to vote on certain questions. And there's a password as well, should you need that. And we'll get to that in a bit. Before that, I would like to have here Ari Tolonen from Labcotech to talk about how they work with international talent. Please welcome him to the stage.
Thank you. I hope you all had a good coffee. It's good to be here after coffee when you're all awake. At least for now. I'm from Labcotech. I'm here to tell a story. How we've done things, how I've done things, how I see things. And if I'll find a pointer here. First, in a nutshell, what we do. We are technology companies. If it works. Thank you. In a nutshell, we work in very niche areas. We have been working with those instruments since '64, quite a bit of a long time. What we do is we make separator alarms. Most of you have never heard about those. It's required by law, which makes it a great product. But in every service station, in every restaurant, there should be a separator to separate grease and oil, thusly helping the environment, protect people and environment. That's our mission. We have subsidiaries. Labcotech AB is in Stockholm, Bromma. There's Wannegar, sales office. In Germany, GmbH, we have 3 people working there. There's a story behind all of this. I'll get back to those ones later. And there's China. Some of the products you may have seen, actually, that comes to mind. If it has a level, if it flows, we can measure it. So, tank level gauging. You have fueled your cars. Behind the pump, it has to recognize how much fuel there's in the main tanks. And therefore, you cannot see it, but it's there, trust me. Interesting products we do is ice detection. As many of you know, the only thing dry here is in Finland is our sense of humor. So there's a lot of ice. We are the leading manufacturer in the world on those. There's 56 people. 1 in China, 3 in Germany. 1 is still in UK, but we did a personal Brexit there this year. One in Stockholm. There are people working from Algeria. I'll come back to that one later. But I'm here to talk about views. I mean, I was told to talk about international talents. I would like to say just talents. Company is looking for talents, not just international talents. It's very important to have a team. Team has to have a structured way of going forward. That's my job. I've been now the CEO for 4.5 years. What is required is a strategy. Now, the strategy word comes from ancient Greece. It actually means leading a village. Strato ago. It's a plan. From the plan, you need to draw out taxes and operations. From that, you get to people. People who actually do those things. You need to set goals and the tasks. There you find the minimum requirements for your talents. You have to find a person. I emphasize person. Doesn't matter he or she. Skilled enough, cultured in any way, doesn't matter. Because the company culture should prevail in these circumstances. He or she needs to be motivated. And needs to understand what she's doing, he is doing. We need to tell them. Talent is not enough. You have to teach people. Like probably you've been discussing this morning already here. But the right persons in right tasks, doing the right things, right. There are a lot of right words here. But still, it's about background, training. There are several different kind of people. I heard that there was a talks about different personalities. Which one is greater, the personality or the culture where the person comes from? It differs day to day. A friend of mine works as a police officer, and I asked him, are you taught in police school if there's a bad cop, good cop procedure? He looked at me and said, you have a family. There's actually 2 bad cops in the car in the morning. So background, training, helps, but the culture of things drive up to ethnic background. That also affects. But everybody, I believe, has a personal strong areas. How do you find them? How do you actually know that the person fits the job? Here in Finland, the initial period when you employ a person before you have to make a decision, permanent or I need to let you go, is 4 months. That's fairly short time, especially in sales. In Germany, it's 6 months. But you need to support the people and follow up. And a little bit about the persons. The pictures in this presentation are the persons that I've hired during the 4.5 years. First one here is Stephanie. Story about her, she's been in several companies, but the interesting thing that, don't tell her, she's 50. And I haven't heard anybody talk about age discrimination here. I have actually hired more people around 50 than 30. Reason for that is that they have actually talked the talk and walked the walk. They've seen it already. There's no discrimination to 20 or 30s. The history, knowledge, skills. Here are these guys, these three guys here. They work in Finland in our research and development. Out of the 56 people, 7 work in research and development. We make our own products. They actually came from our subcontractors. We agreed with the subcontractor that maybe it would be better that this guy would work for us the whole day. So the networks, how to find the talents, are everywhere. Just have to keep it in mind. This guy is also from our subcontractor. Was close to bankruptcy. It wasn't performing well. And he used to play with us salibändi, if you know, floorball. He knew the guy. One heck of a player though. And good one. From to HR, he came from, how do you call it, rent-a-person firm for intermediate time. And we actually hired her within 6 months. But how to find the right talent? Sometimes it comes from another company, sometimes from HR offices or companies, sometimes from the networks. And I've started to trust more about the networks. I mean, knowing the person, word of mouth. So, been able to find them through several places. But for talents, you need to get to know them. This is about the leadership thing. You need to speak to the person. Make sure absolutely that they know what is expected of them. Within the next 4 months, I want you to do these things. Within next year, I expect you to do these things. That's why we have appraisal talks every 6 months. Just to get the people in the same level. This is what I want you to be doing. The last one there is be honest. That's the hardest part. You have to be able to stand in front of a person and say, you don't belong here. That's the hardest part. But you have to do it. Remember, it's about the team. If he or she doesn't fit the team, it's no longer a functioning team. That's the reality. More about right talent. When we hired Per here, he's from Denmark. He was 58. He's been doing the same business for 30 years. Everybody knew Per. Very, very valuable guy. So, our Danish sales has gone up around 200,000 euros because he's Danish. In Denmark, you have to be Danish. In Germany, you have to be German. If you pick up the phone and, in your own opinion, speak fluent German or English, think again. You can hear it. It's exactly the same thing if you send a guy from Helsinki to sell something in Lapland. He'll fly the next plane back without a word. Peter Schweisching, also in Germany. The main reason actually we hired him because he has the same sense of humor as we do. Very, very dry. Then there are guys who actually applied for us. These 3. Plus there was another one, but I couldn't find his picture because he's good in evading administrative stuff. But he's good on the field. It was a team of workers that wanted to work together, and the former employee was selling the business. They used to work for us as a subcontractors, and they asked, can the whole team come up to us? Well, fortunately, it wasn't a strategy to build up that kind of business. It was a service business. There was an opportunity, there was business, hired them all. I never regret that. But you have to let them grow. They have good ideas. Listen. But you also need to train them. There are company cultures that they need to learn. If the company culture is not good enough, nobody wants to work in the company in the long run. You have to have a clear strategy, clear plans, and the way to do things. But you have to train the people what's expected. Do it this way. And not just because we've been doing it for 30 years this way. It's not the right one. Make sure that how you keep them is, if you demand something, there's equal power that they have. Probably many of us have heard enough stories that I would do that, but I can't do that. And again, be really, really honest on these ones. There's 56 people in the company. I know everybody by first name. I know who they're married to or not, if they're divorcing or not. It's a burden, of course, in a sense, but I don't demand them to tell me these things. I go and work with them. That is one thing where you also recognize the talents, whether international or Finnish. How to keep them? I mean, first you attract them, then you hire them, then you need to keep them. Treat them as persons. That's the first thing. You probably all feel the same. You want to be treated as persons. Make sure that the working hours are decent. Sometimes you have to pull 12 to 15 hours. After that, make sure there's a break. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So you have to be aware how they work. You have to give leverage. There are other activities in people's lives than just work. In our company, you may use 1.5 hours each week for exercising. If your boss knows where you are, that's cool. And the healthcare, take extra healthcare if possible, and it's in every country that we are in. It's in Sweden, in Germany, Denmark, and in China, so that you can see the doctor immediately. That is one of the last things I like to emphasize again. Let them run or let them go. You might get them stuck in the wrong place. That's why the people should more pay attention to choose the employer than the employee to choose them. But the right talents. I mean, people are a valuable asset, right? I have a slightly different opinion. I mean, in my opinion, they are your only asset. Doesn't matter how good gadgets you have, how good products you have. Doesn't get sold without the people. For example, selling is from person to person. Thank you. Question? Oh, hello.
It was very interesting. The microphone. Oh, sorry. You're welcome. Yes. Thanks very much. Let's have a seat. What do you think? Because there's some questions.
I should put it politely, yes.
Yes. We would like to have you, the audience, asking a few questions. But before we get to that, so the nationality, that's no question, except when you talk about sales, and you need to have a native, a Danish in Denmark, a German in Germany, to work with the local people. But otherwise, nationality is of no importance. What you need are the things we talked about. So when you recruit, you want to have those talents available to you, those people, main assets. So if you don't get that selection in Finland, would you like to see Helsinki, the city, the government, somebody working more so that we would have more talents here?
Definitely. I mean, the only way to go abroad is to hire international people. And I talked about the culture. It's a culture how you behave, even how you breathe, how do you greet people, how do you actually handle your business cards. Those might seem small issues, but they actually exist. Yeah, that is one of the things.
And you need to be wary of them and take them into account.
Yeah.
We have on the screen, to our back here, a question. The current ways to connect with internationals are adequate. This is a question about Finland. People somewhat and strongly seem to disagree that the current ways to connect with internationals here, well, they think it's inadequate. What do you think?
I somewhat agree, but I have to tell you that there are multiple sources. Actually, there are too many sources available. I mean, there's social media, advertising, international affairs, exhibitions, you name it. But if you want to meet the right people in the specific area, you go to exhibitions, you go to seminars. That's how you meet the right people from that area. So I somewhat agree, but I would have to guess someone disagree. Yeah.
Okay, could we have the next question, please? So the audience seems to have got the gist of the app. That's great. Talents require less supervision in order to complete their work. Do talents require less supervision?
This is an easy one. This is really easy.
Don't look at the screen. I mean, you would think that if you find, let's say, an international talent, I get your point, obviously, that nationality doesn't matter. But if you have a person who's moved to another country, that already implies some sort of more of an entrepreneurial spirit, you would assume. Have you ever come across that? That indeed somebody has come here, okay.
Yes. Well, we bought the business, our competitor in Germany. I actually have a story, but it's too long. But I strongly disagree on this one. It's more supervision sometimes. A talented person has their own mind. It's not the company's mind. I tell you that. That's why you have to train. Take the last one.
Okay. One more question. English is not enough. Knowledge of Finnish or Swedish is also needed. We're talking about Finland.
Strongly disagree. English is enough. I mean, the international language of business is bad English. If you go to any country, if you can say hello or good morning, you get better service instantly. But after that, you can change to English. Even in France. Sorry, it's French here. That's actually one of the difficult countries.
It is. I remember I went to a zoo, and there were elephants, and elephants were trained, right? And the zookeeper, the person there, told us about how they get trained, etc. And it's in English. So this wasn't an English-speaking country. So I asked, okay, is it English? The elephants speak English? Yeah, but we brought them from Africa somewhere. Okay, but it's still English. Yes, it's internationally, there's a convention or tradition that elephants get trained in English. So I asked the man, even in France? Even in France. But the audience seems to somewhat agree, followed closely by, somewhat disagree that Finnish is needed. Well, I guess experiences are different, but yes, your point about knowing bad English, it being the international language, yes. Okay, we'll return to some of the questions later on. We will now have Topi Koskinen from Gofore to tell his story about his companies and international talents. Thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Topi Koskinen and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Gofore. It's my pleasure to be here today in this session. Glad to see so many people joining me. First, a couple of words about Gofore. Gofore is a digital services company. In addition to designing and developing digital services, we also support our clients in the necessary cultural change towards digitalization. This year we were awarded as the best place to work in Finland and the #2 in Europe, which we are very proud of. We are a company with approximately 350 people in 4 countries and 6 cities, and the expected turnover this year will be more than 32 million euros. The roots of Gofore's international business come from a recent acquisition. This year Gofore bought a company called Leadin, which is an international service design company established here in Finland. I used to be the CEO of Leadin, so I know pretty much what I'm talking about. Today I'm going to share some points of how Leadin and thus Gofore made our way international and how our international talents helped us in getting to where we are today. In our case, the going international started with an explicit decision. Our business in Finland was healthy and it was growing, so there was nothing wrong with that. We were thinking about the future and all the opportunities and all the limitations that there possibly might be. And one of the observations we made, to our surprise, was that even though there's a lot of business in Finland and there's a huge demand for the digitalization, there are even more people, even more business, even more money outside Finland, believe it or not. So we thought that it might make sense to go globally in case we want to keep on growing. Some of us also had our background in international companies, so we thought that we are capable of, and we are also hungry to get out of the local areas and into the international playfields. We also listened to our people, to the people in our crew, and our clients, what do they think about that, and everybody agreed. As an international company, we will be more attractive, more interesting as a workplace, and we will be also adding more value to our clients. So off we went. We started from our clients, so we didn't start from the people, we started from the clients. We thought that it makes sense to start contacting our already existing clients because many of them were international companies. Companies such as ABB or Danfoss or Sandvik or Nokia or Microsoft and so forth. So we were looking at them and starting to contact their overseas operations, their international divisions, in order to create business. Since we are also, many of us had career background in international companies, we had a network of contacts also outside Finland, so we started to contact them. Kind of the hard work of contacting, convincing, meeting people and so forth in order to get like real foreign clients. So that's what we did, and we were successful. We had a little bit of luck too, since our first client was Jaguar Land Rover. Now, what's exceptional about this company as a client, of course, is that everybody knows the brand. And having this brand in our portfolio opened many, many doors in many, many countries. It helped our business here in Finland too. So it was really helpful. But having worked for a while with this company from Finland made us open a site close to the client in the UK. So we thought that it's a good idea to go closer to the client, and so we asked our people if there's anybody willing to go there, have a site there. We were all Finns at the time. And there was a great gentleman called Hapo who rose his hand and said that he would be voluntary. So we sent him there, and 2 years after we had decided to go international, we had our first site established in Swansea, United Kingdom. By the way, Hapo, the person that I mentioned, he's still there, so it was a one-way ticket for him. But it was obvious that our clients would appreciate that, being close to them, so that was by no means a surprise. What was a surprise, to an extent at least, was how strong positive cycle it would start to our company and our company culture. By the way, the building that you saw in the picture is not where our office is. It's in the same campus, it's in the university campus, but not exactly the same building. But it's a beautiful picture. About the positive cycle, the logic there is simple. So even though the person that went there, the Finnish person, is perhaps the most talented in creating contacts and in convincing clients and doing the sales work, and also as a designer he's a good guy, having a site there kind of forced us to start hiring local people, because that's why we went there, to be close to the client. So we wanted to hire local people. So that's what we did. And once we hired local, non-Finnish people, pushed us to adopt a more international culture. And this was significant. Most visible sign of this was that the language had to change. So all our speaking and all our writing started to turn into English. The official documentation, the slideware, the web pages, social media, and finally, as we had the people in our team that were not Finnish, also our talking, our coffee table chit-chats started to turn into English. And once that happened, huge things started to go on. Having this kind of an international facade and having these few international non-Finnish people in our team suddenly made us much more attractive employer in Finland. We started to receive applications from extremely highly talented and educated designers and engineers and business people who couldn't get employed in Finland because they didn't speak Finnish. There was a Chinese software engineer who had been working for Nokia, but what happened to Nokia? Nokia went away, and suddenly we have a person without a job, highly talented. There was a Brazilian engineer, by the way, in the picture right here. He had an engineer profession from Brazil, he was studying his second profession, master's in business design in Aalto University. There was a German front-end developer, there was a designer from New York, there were clever people from all around the world, Hungary, Italy, Spain, United States, India, you name it. No parla finlandese? No job. But in our case, we have to build the capability and the culture to get them in. So we had a competitive advantage in the job markets. We had the processes and all that, unlike many of our rivals, of which some were much bigger and much more well-known brands than we were. And we were able to break this. Further, we were now also able to offer a better service for our Finnish employees. We were able to provide them international career options. Spending 1 month or 3 months or a year or a longer term period abroad, that's possible. And that's an important proposition when you can say this in a job interview. We can promise that there is an option for international career. Not many will do that, but everybody will appreciate that. But of course you need to stand for that. If they want to go, there needs to be an opportunity as well. Further, those who wouldn't consider moving outside Finland or of their other country, we could offer natural situations to interact with people from other cultures. And that's something that is surprisingly valuable when you are asking from the people who apply to work with you. So what makes me emphasize this aspect of hiring or being more attractive to Finnish employees? The reason is that in the current market of digitalization, the competition is really bad. And there's a huge competition of workforce, competent, talented, motivated people, because they can choose where they want to go. So if you are able to provide, like honestly, a context, an environment which is an international one, people are more likely to come. They respect that. So, now if attracting competent, motivated workforce is one part of the equation, then the client is the other part of that equation. We had gone to the UK, as I mentioned, in order to be close to the client. However, quite soon we realized that that was the only benefit of the internationalization strategy that we had. Now, I think Ari mentioned this, or in the discussion at least, this idea of if you go to another country to meet a person or trying to sell something for a person in their country, it's important to build the trust. Now, how do you build the trust? What is trust made of? It's often made of very small and invisible ingredients. It's very hard to say where it comes from. But speaking the local language doesn't harm. It usually helps a lot. So we learned that it's so much easier to break the ice if you can take somebody who is from the local culture with you when you go to the meetings. Because often, even though the deals are signed in meeting rooms, they are made by the coffee machine. So the trust is built by the coffee machine. When you know how people behave by the coffee machine while commuting, during the dinner or lunch and so forth, those are the real things that often create the trust. So, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch, kein Problem. But when I go to meet clients in Germany, I feel much more convenient and comfortable if I have Johannes or Fabian or Christopher with me to join those meetings and to listen to their nuances. Now, beyond sales, just in terms of convincing the client, with the multicultural, multinational team, we can also, and multi-site team, we can add more value to the client. An example, our job is to do, among other things, user research and consumer research. So having a site in the UK, in Germany, in Spain, and in Finland with local people, not many but few, we can repeat the user study in these 4 countries with local language without the need of hiring external services. But further, I mean, beyond that, it's not just the places where we have offices. Now, as I mentioned, we have hired a lot of people in Finland who are from different nationalities. Actually, there are more than 50, I guess there's about 20 different nationalities in our team. So with that team, we can basically do the same thing virtually anywhere. So for example, we can send Fabiano or Andre in Rio, and they can speak fluently native Brazilian Portuguese with the local people, or Daniela in New York, or Carmen in Copenhagen, or Guido in Milan, and so forth. So it's kind of supports our core business of dealing with the consumers. And one more aspect, if and when the people in our team get used to interact with other people in a different language, and people from different cultures, different countries, different languages, it becomes natural. There's nothing strange about it. And it starts to impact the way you behave. And what that makes is that it's easier also for your clients and your partners to contact you. Because you don't feel like somebody who is scared of foreigners or anything like that. You are more capable to interact with people from other places and other cultures. In the end, big companies always want to work with internationally credible, trustworthy partners. And hiring all these people and having these small sites everywhere, we were seen that way. Companies in Europe, companies in Finland, companies basically all over the world started to see us that way. Today, after Go4 and Leading have merged, we employ more than 350 people. Like I said, we have offices in 4 countries and 6 cities. Our people come from more than 15 different countries, and they speak more than 15 different languages as their native. This year we made about 4 million euro turnover from export outside Finland, and that has more than doubled from what it was last year. And it's growing. So as a conclusion, this internationalization has brought us several benefits. For us, it started from having the site, well, explicit decision and then the site, the first clients and then the site outside Finland. There has been plenty of advantages, more than just being close to the customer. Determined implementation of the international and diversity leveraging culture has opened us doors to much bigger market and much bigger employee market, because we are technically and culturally capable of hiring foreign and Finnish people. It has been excellent for the employee experience, because people want to work in an international context. People usually respect the diversity, and it adds value to our clients too. Now, has there been any challenges? Of course there has been challenges, of course there are challenges. If I'm asked this question, I usually have one answer, and the answer is language. Language is the big thing there, and the language is the biggest concern as well. Many colleagues, Finnish colleagues, ask me that how can a company culture survive if you start speaking a foreign language? Don't you just lose all your nuances? What if you just start sounding stupid or childish because you don't have all the vocabulary and so forth? Well, my answer is that no. Actually, it improves your culture, it brings more diversity and variety there. But it's important to respect that concern. And it's important to allow people to use the language that they feel most familiar with. But you should also encourage them to speak English. Because I've written here down that bad English is the most common language in the world. It was funny to hear you saying that as well. But that's the fact. Bad English is the most common language in the world. And it's enough. But the problem is relevant, and then my hint to any starting company or young company is that you should hire your first and your second foreign person as soon as possible. One is usually not enough, because if you have only one, he or she might just get excluded from the discussions and so forth. But if you have two, then there's usually enough, to turn the language into English. But the point is, do it as soon as possible. Because if you one day want to go international, if you one day want to do export, you need to do that anyways. And the sooner you do it, the less effort it requires. The more late you do it, the more costly and the more higher burden it will be for you. But if you want to be an international company, start behaving like an international company as soon as possible. Thank you.
Could you maybe take a seat?
Sure, may I tell you one story? Because I promised her about that. She actually brought one person to a company called Iali from Algeria, and he came as a trainee.
Tell the audience, who brought the employee?
No, you'll find it yourself. We had a discussion with Iali.
Yeah, right. But the basic idea, he spoke French. And from Algeria, they've been doing business 3,000 years. So here's a sales guy. In France, we used to sell 50,000 euros. This year, it's 500,000 in 2 years.
This dialogue here was going on between Business Tampere. So from our company point of view, where we work with this talent management and we spot the best practices, Tampere is a very, very good practice, because in Tampere they work very much with talents and matchmaking, as we can see. So, before we get to the questions, one recommendation in a nutshell to companies, that's the note you ended on. If you would be able to give to an ex-company, SME, small company here in Helsinki or Finland, advice on internationalization, it would be start walking the walk, get international, if you want to be international, as soon as possible.
I would say hire your first and your second non-Finnish employee as soon as possible.
Make sure you have a plan to tell them. It's not a kindergarten.
Okay, let's take a question from the audience. Employers with diverse employees are considered being more attractive employers. A pretty solid majority of the audience does think that. Gentlemen, would you agree?
Well, I definitely do agree, and I've seen that in practice. So people, when they come to job interviews, they say that even aloud. I'm working a lot with software developers and user experience designers, and both of them have very good, job situation. They can basically choose where they want to work. And when they come to us, that's one of the arguments why they decided to come to us, if they see it as an international company.
I strongly agree. I think it was Einstein that said that they're doing the same thing the same way and expecting different results is the first sign of insanity.
That is a quote I like as well. Next question, please. Induction of international talents requires extra effort. Does it require extra effort? If you talked about them being people, valuable asset as long as they get the job done, stick to the company culture, are a good fit for what you're looking for, does it create any extra work, extra effort to get international talent?
Well, my comment is that yes, somewhat agree. on that sense. So often the work that we do doesn't require so much. But then there's all the cultural aspects. And we are, for example, offering Finnish language training just in order to support these people to get into the culture and get into the sort of, because life is not just work, there's things outside work, and in order to feel home, you need to have that balance. So those kinds of things require a little bit more effort.
I agree, it needs additional effort. It's one of the key issues, like you said, is culture. The cultural differences. In Finland it's easy to pick up those settled things of a person, but in Germany it's different, in France it's different.
The audience somewhat agrees and somewhat disagrees. So, somewhat agrees remains. I remember an article from the BBC that how to write a CV. It differs very much. You would think between Finland and India. Well, it differs very much between Sweden and the UK as well. Because as that article pointed out, if you have a CV in the UK, it's several pages long. You list all your education, conferences, extra training stuff you've been to, hobbies maybe. So it's several pages long. You send that stuff to an employer in Sweden, probably everywhere in the Nordics. It's off the table. It's too long. It's weird. It's too much self-boosting. It doesn't get anywhere. Whereas in Sweden and here probably it's short, to the point, no nonsense. Works here, does not work in the UK because you've studied so little and etc. So it was a pretty funny article, but it nonetheless pointed out that there can be very big and critical cultural differences already. Next question, please. Hiring an international will change the business culture. Who wants to go first?
The business culture is a difficult one. What does it mean? The company culture, sure it does change. Sure it does change for the good.
I would have to say the same. As I strongly agree. It changes the business culture also. But the company culture, there are a lot of cultures here, backgrounds, but I agree. It will change and for the good, if managed well.
Yeah. You get more diversity, more different people, more personalities. I think that makes you get a different nationality, of course. But when it comes to hiring somebody and you think about innovation, for example, and new skills, then of course that's probably a good benefit, right? If somebody comes from a different environment, different company, different experience, age, but already with a different background to how things are done.
It might also go the wrong way.
Yes?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Learn the wrong things. You have to de-learn first.
Interesting point. The audience somewhat agrees, followed by strongly agrees. Somewhat agrees with the statement. Let's have one more question from the panel. There's a difference in motivation when comparing Finns and internationals. So, how do you motivate a Finn versus motivating any other?
Well, sorry, but this is kind of weird. So there's like Finns and then there's the rest, and there's a difference between Finns and the rest. It's not that way. People are different, you know. There are all shades of grey in between, so you cannot put that line. But of course, if you take it so that there's local people and then people who have made the effort of coming here, then I suppose that with getting employed is more difficult for people who have come here. So in that sense, they probably are more motivated as well, and they don't require all the stuff that Finns perhaps require in order to get motivated. But like I said, it's not black and white in that sense.
You probably need still to, if you think about the culture perhaps and how to help the person to learn the company culture, the local Finnish culture, to understand that if people always necessarily don't say good morning, it's not a bad thing, don't worry, sort of a bit of holding hands probably would be required depending on the case, of course.
Perhaps,
Yeah, it doesn't differ. it's person to person. What did they think about this kind of question before? Yes.
So it's about people, not where they come from, how they look like, what language they speak, where the language can be an issue, but then you don't put a Finn to work on sales in Germany and vice versa, and that's it. All right. This has been an interesting discussion. Thank you all very much. We'll take a small break and convene here at 3:40 for our evening session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Joo, niissä on paras. Niin. Joo. Voiko herrat tehdä vielä kuvaa? Okei. Kyllä. Tulee sinä keskellä.
Tulee tuo lamppu ihan. Mahtavaa, kiitos tosi paljon.
Itse asiassa niin, sitä puolella. Niin on. Joo. Mutta kaupunki ja Kiiton kaupunki Joo, on hauska. Joo, koska mä haluaisin keskustella, koska meillä on tuossa projekti kaupunki laskentahankkeita, miten he saisivat digitalisoida paremmin ja enemmän.
Yeah, everyone, so we have about 20 minutes, so if you want to go get a glass of water, still have time, but about 20 minutes and we'll be continuing, grab a cup of coffee and we'll be here for final statements. Yeah.
Interested to see how they
initially worked in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, and then I moved to the United States and worked in Boston and Miami. I have been living in Colombia for 8 years. I work as a creative director in this firm. What we do is we bring branding to our client table as a changing force. We all know what we do, but very few of us think on why we do what we do. But for me, that's the passion, that's the driving force. Finding that, that's my job.
Meillä on modellit markkinoinnin viestintätoimistolla 55 henkeä duunissa tällä hetkellä ja meillä on isot kasvutavoitteet lähivuosina. Aletaan palkata 10 henkeä. Me ollaan tosi tyytyväisiä, että Ricardo osaajan kiinni ja Ricardolla on niin vahva kansainvälisen tason osaaja ja perspektiiviä, ja se on kyllä ihan huippulisää myös meidän asiakkaille nämä projektit. Meillä on tietysti nyt kansainvälisen tason tekijöitä, ja mä näen, että me tullaan tarvitsemaan lähivuosina heitä myös lisää. Meidän asiakkaiden on monesti jo kansainvälisellä tasolla, ja sitä me ei pysty tarjoamaan osaamista.
Kiitos ihan paljon, oli erittäin hyvä.
Olemme tehneet selvitystä hyvistä käytännöistä hyödyntää kansainvälisiä osaajia yritysten innovaatiotoiminnassa ja kansainvälisissä. Tätä selvitystä on tehty 4 maassa. Selvityksessä on tullut esille, että parhaat hyödyt saavutetaan, kun hallinnolla kehitetään yritysten tarpeisiin, ei ainoastaan työnhakijoita. Hyviä käytäntöjä yrityksille Suomessa ovat erilaiset verkostoitumisrahastot, mentomointi sekä yrityspalvelut. Lisäksi olisi tärkeää, että nämä palvelut ovat saatavilla samassa paikassa sekä yrityksille että kansainvälisiä osaajille.
Erittäin hyvä. Ja tosissaan...
Toivottavasti se oli konseptina, että mä avulla vain, että haluttiin jotain niin käyttää tuosta tekniikkaa.
Se on oikea paikka, joita on tavata
ja koska tämä olisi älyttömän
Valtioneuvosto haluaa parantaa kansainvälisten osaajien asioita suomalaisen elinkeinoelämän hyväksi. Tätä varten olemme lähteneet selvittämään erilaisia hyväksi havaittuja malleja maailmalla. Tätä tietoa tullaan hyödyntämään valtioneuvostossa, kun tehdään päätöksiä.
Ihan sama ja just niin tähän aiheeseen. Ihan täydellinen. Kiitos.
Hi, my name is Yvonne. I'm the founder and CEO of Huone. And Huone means room, even though we are trying to create a new meaning for room here in the very heart of Jätkäsaari. We started 5 years ago. Huone is an event hotel. And today we are also in Singapore, which just opened 6 months ago, and we are very proud to be employing almost 30 people today.
Blueforce is a high-tech growth company. We design and manufacture cryostats. It's an ultra-low temperature system that's used for scientific research, such as nanotechnology or quantum computing. We currently have employees from 10 different nationalities. We have basically tripled our size in the last 3 years.
Tokmanni is #1 discount retailer in Finland, which is originally a very Finnish company. That was founded in 1989. It was listed in Helsinki Stock Exchange in May 2016, actually the same day I entered the company. Tokmanni has 170 stores all over Finland and 3,300 employees. We have employees from different countries and different cultures working in our logistics center and in our stores, mostly in the southern part of Finland and close to Russian border. I believe multiculturalism will play a much more important role in our company in the coming years.
I think it is extremely important for us to have access to the international market because Huone is not going to be only a domestic brand. And this is a brand that we would like to take international. In Finland, not necessarily we are able to find this talent. So sometimes if we want export in, for example, in the Middle East region or then in the Southern European region, and we would need those know-how from elsewhere.
Having diverse workforce is very important. As we have learned from different studies, diverse teams are much more innovative than non-diverse teams, and companies need to be innovative in order to be successful in today's competitive world?
Well, we need the best brains to maintain our competitive edge. And for us, it's very important to find the right people to fit into our company culture, who have the attitude for proactive development, people who get things done in a smart way.
I think every company should build its own strategy for diversity management, taking into account its own values, its own background, and its own targets. However, it is possible to learn from other companies. I think the main point is that everyone in the company feels respected and sees their own purpose for the company and kind of respect the culture of the company. Well, our customers come from different backgrounds and different cultures. So therefore it's important that our staff also has diverse backgrounds. So they know what our customers are looking for.
Bluefors is quite well known internationally in our specific field of cryogenics. And this is mainly thanks to our wide network of universities and physicists who have helped us create our brand and enter new markets. It's like one physicist recommending our systems to another physicist. So this has enabled organic growth.
Since Finland is aging rapidly, we need workforce from other countries just to keep the society going.
I have to say that Finland is a very, very good country. Me coming from Malaysia, I am very fortunate to be calling Finland my home today. I do have to say that if there is something that I can suggest for the state or the government to do, will be to actually put Finland on the map even more to the international market, so that they know what kind of great country Finland is.
We should further promote the open and inclusive working culture, provide tools for better leadership in companies, invest in education to enable flexible education and employment opportunities for international people also.
Finland has been multicultural for ages, actually since 1500. And I think Finland will be multicultural even in the future, even more than today. I think it's very important that we get talented multicultural people to teach into our universities, into our schools, and that we recruit those talented young people who study in our universities.
In my perspective, Finland has so much to be showing off to the world for, that Finland will definitely be a superstar in the next 100 years in the global market. For Finland is a very safe country, like I said before, and that Finland has so many talents. And Finnish people are honest, Finland is beautiful. So I think that Finland will have a very influential role when it comes to leading the rest of the world of what is an advanced country and a very safe country to be a model of.
Well, I hope that through science and research and technology, Finland will be a leading country in sustainability, equality, and economic growth. Finland will support entrepreneurship, innovation, higher education.
I just wish that we lead our country wisely, enable different people from different countries and backgrounds to develop our society and also in the future.
When different perspectives meet, new knowledge is created, and this can be just what we need.
Having run a company that is multinational, me myself being coming from a foreign background, today called Finland my home, I have to say that don't be afraid to hire foreigners. They may look different, they may come from different background, different experience, but that's going to be an advantage when it comes to building a diverse team. And a diverse team can create so much more. When you put these diverse human beings together to collaborate on new ideas and new strategies, that's when you see all the fireworks start to happen. So I, for one, can vouch for a multicultural company. I strongly recommend any one of you to also try to hire more foreigners and be not afraid of what is looking different from the outside.
Genvi Melty, we're a software company and we're basically experts in digital and agile ways to work. We do SaaS services like project management and leadership software. And we were established back in 2013. Currently we have office here in town with 6 people, and we have around 9,000 users of our software, and they are from around 15 countries. We have an international team, some are Finns and some are Englishmen and some are Russians, and through our student program we have had people from, let's say, 15 different countries collaborating with Genvi. There are so many benefits in having international talent, but concrete stuff, it makes it easier to sell to international customers. It makes it easier to solve problems when you have a diverse team with a variety of viewpoints on topics. It makes it easier to build an international product. The main thing is to have the best people and the best team, but I think that the best team is one with at least lots of cultural knowledge. So mostly that doesn't comprise of just Finnish and similar people. Companies should open their eyes and look for the benefits that this like a diverse and multicultural team has. So when you work with an international mindset yourself, it's a lot easier to go international and to sell internationally and to understand what the customers in the country A or country B need, and it doesn't feel so distant compared to if you just work like with Finnish customers and Finnish people. The next people we recruit, we will emphasize it quite a lot, that they have a different kind of cultural knowledge than the current employees of the company. So we want to recruit so that it builds a more international team every time. I kind of see that multiculturalism is connected to the whole shift in the way that people work in general, so that we work in flexible teams, for example. We don't have the same people around us every day. We do projects, and freelancing is big, and the best people get together and do great stuff.
From inside out.
Happyonat provides an award-winning service for continuous customer and employee experience monitoring and improvement. The service is being used in over 100 countries. We have about 60 employees working in the offices here in headquarters in Tampere, Finland. We have office in the USA as well. Besides that, we have employees in the UK, German and Asian region. Multiculturalism shows the everyday life in our company. First of all, our official language is English, which is of course being spoken in 15 or 16 accents. From the business viewpoint, multiculturalism is a vital cornerstone of our success. As we are doing business in so many countries, we naturally need help in understanding the work cultures, the ethics, the contractual challenges in entering the new country. So these local experts that we have hired help us move faster with the help of their language, with the help of their networks. Sometimes it's surprisingly easy because things move on compared to the expectations that we have. Without these experts, we would be in the need of continuous health of the external consultants, and that will of course cost us a lot of time and money. So it helps with all the different viewpoints, in the sales, in the product development, in customer care, in developing the concepts in general. We use external hiring experts because we actually are not experts of the, for instance, American working culture. We don't actually know what are the best ways to find out the best doers. So we are basically, in the end, saving money and time by using those experts. The companies are forced to think more and more globally in their business, in their recruitment, and everything they do nowadays. So these are definitely going to change. They have already been changing about 5 years ago. We were able to get up the best candidates, even being a small company, just because those best candidates were not accepted in the big Finnish companies because they were not able to talk or write perfect Finnish. That change is going to, of course, have a positive impact on the Finnish business life in general, but I think there's still some conventions and traditions to be shown. And one of those things is that companies should consider that is it really necessary that your employee needs to be fluent Finnish speaker.
Now we have a guest person saying for you all to come here. I'd love to give you the opportunity. What's your name? Alexandra, go for it. Let's get people inside here.
Okay, dear participants, can you please come to finalize this wonderful event and to come to final conclusions? Welcome to the Great Wall. If you don't come now, you will never know what we found out.
Oh, that was really good. I'll use you more often. Thank you, Alexandra. Okay, great. You have to put that on your CV. That was good. All right, everyone. Let's come back for final speeches. That's the best. That's the best. What's the best way? Just stomp. Get over there. Get in there. Get in there. Get in there. We have. Let's see. We have 3 minutes. I'm on time. Ahead of schedule. Amazing. You should give people proper candy, you know, like buckets. Buckets are usually the best way. All right, see you later, man. Buckets. Okay, everyone, we have candy. Get over here. Get over here. Candy, candy. Where are you looking? It's a white one. Birthday boy, again. How many people get sung on stage the birthday party? Not too many, not too many. Kun yhdistää mikrofonin siihen, että vaan hakee ihmisen kädestä, niin mieleen voimaa. Alright everybody, welcome back. The final phase of our day. Our next speaker is a man who's going to talk a little bit about adversity and how you can overcome it. and he's an American, so he knows how you can do it. He's also great because he lives in Tampere, my hometown, so great. And I'm sorry for everybody who's from Turku. I mean Turku is awesome also. But Michael Beversdorf, I'll give you the stage now, and Michael will share his perspective about coming to Finland as an international talent. And then we'll have some closing words, and that'll be it. But Michael, the stage is yours. Enjoy.
Thank you. I wasn't quite sure who I would be talking to today, and coming here in the morning I saw how many international people were here, and giving my story as an international person, started to think more about what I'm going to say. And I even wondered about, this slide here, which is a very American thing, whether or not I explain it or then ask you guys to guess what I'm going to talk about here. My mother from Indiana recently told me a story about going for a ride in her sister's nice new car. During the ride, it turned out she was impressed not by the car, but by a Kleenex tissue insert in the cup holder. That was the impression, not the car. Now, you're probably aware that cars are very important for Americans, but did you know that the cup holder is a very important feature of a car? And whether or not you can put your keys and your change in the middle console might be a decision why you buy a car or not. You might think that this is, funny. Those silly Americans always walking around with their takeaway cups. But it doesn't matter if it's, if you laugh, because if you're business-minded, you might see an opportunity here if you understand what is important. So all you need to know is that women over 60 in the US, especially those with extra money, think that tissue cup holders are important. So you can see here, first of all, you have the original design, which of course, if you're in America, you have to be patriotic, and you have the flag on it, everything. Then the importance of the car. I don't know how many Finnish cars have all this equipment in them, but then it moves to, okay, that was a failed invention there. They didn't realize that the cup holder is round. And then the one that actually made the cut was there. But why do I start with a product story? My message here is how cultural understanding can be good for business. Let me start introducing myself. So, Michael Beversdorf, Mikkeli to my wife's grandmother, and other select people. I am one of the many foreigners who have decided to make Finland my home. Some through marriage, others through job opportunities, and some who just wanted to have a quiet place to live because people here don't talk that much. I've been asked to give this talk as part of as an ambassador for the Business Tampere organization. My experience is by no means unique, but this is my experience, it is my own, and I treasure each of the memories that I have had, the personal breakthroughs that I've made on my journey to becoming integrated into Finland. So I'm an American-Finnish dual citizen with an international background. I was born in the Philippines, and I lived there for 10 years. 12 of my school years were in the US. I lived in Paris, Texas at that point. And finally, two separate years in Germany as exchange student, and the last 20 years here in Finland. I am fluent now in the Finnish language, and I use it in the business environment every day. In German, I also did learn to speak as an exchange student at that point. Although I have had to learn to adapt to a lot of different cultures, and every time I really have tried hard to become a local. So a Filipino, a Texan, a German, and now a Finn. I have realized that I will always be an American, the culture of my birth family. It shines through in the way I see the world, how I react to my surroundings, how I approach my work. Of course, it can and has been improved with each culture I live through. For example, learning to smile less to people on the street when I walk past them. Which, by the way, in Texas you have to do, but in Finland they think you're a crazy person. So you have to know where you are. Despite moving around, my Americanness remains a main characteristic for me. I actually call it my superpower, which was kind of funny because we talked about that earlier today. It's my strength. And after getting to know the culture and language here in Finland, I actually act as an interpreter at many times. In fact, I have no choice. I have to get used to being, I've had to get used to being asked about US matters in a way that, and when I try to explain how the US politics works, I've actually had to learn it myself. And in certain circles, I am a spokesperson for the US, so whenever the US president makes a statement, I'm asked for an explanation. I didn't say it was easy, but it's the role I have to play. My own adventure with living and working in Finland began in 1997. At that time I had learned basic words in Finnish, mostly to do with objects around the house. During that learning, myself and probably all of you who've really given it a try have had your own memory of a complete language fail. Mine came at a point when I decided to be proactive and not let my wife be the interpreter for situations. I decided, okay, I know enough Finnish now. We went to a sports store to look for ankle weights for aerobic exercises. And we looked around the store, couldn't find them. And so I thought, I saw a young man standing over by the rack, salesperson, and I thought, I'm going to go ask him. And I thought about the word for weight, paino. So I went up to him and said, onko sinulla paineita? My wife, she heard what was going on. She came over quickly. What I had asked him was, are you stressed? She said, onko teillä painoja? So do you have weights? So just a few letters, and it had a world of difference. But so for Americans too, you know, the two vowels, the two letters next to each other, the as and the ers, and some of my favorite words have been the yötä ja pöytä. I remember the first year I would just say those for fun because it just sounded so fun in my tongue. So learning the Finnish language has taken me time. During the first few years, I do remember it was stressful. The first year of being here, it took me about a year to learn the basic communications. And about 2 years to start to understand humor. As an American, you always, you know, when you tell a joke, you smile afterwards. You told somebody that I just told you a joke. But then you tell the joke and you can't see it, you can't read it. So that took me time to understand that Finns are actually playing words a lot, almost all the time. And you just don't know it, until you reach a certain level of the language. Then producing that humor myself, I would say it took me about 5 years. I kept trying and failing a lot. But I eventually got to the point where I could produce some of it as well. Still at the point where I'm not that great. And now with 2 daughters, my latest challenge, my latest language challenge is to master teenage Finnish. I don't think that's going to happen. Whenever you learn something, it's already old. From my work experience here in Finland, have I felt equal to my Finnish competitors or co-workers competitors in the workplace? My personal experience has been very positive. Co-workers over the years have been open and direct, and management has been fair. One of the biggest differences I found to American work life was that there's a less need for what they call face time. So in American companies, it means that you stay at work longer hours just because your co-workers and boss are there. Finland, you get your job done, you go home. You know, nobody, at least in my experience, that has been a lot of the way things work. I have heard her comments from foreign friends in Finland, how they feel excluded from decisions and perhaps even promotions because they are not Finns. My own response and my opinion to them has been that there can be exceptions. It could be that that's happening. But in my opinion, I believe that trust is always the most important factor in the workplace, not nationality or language. In fact, the language question also works the other way around, where sometimes I've worked in situations where we have Finns and foreigners, and the Finn cannot express himself in English very well. And they are highly intelligent and very key to the team. but they are not valued by the foreign person because they are not able to understand or not able to express themselves in that conversation. And I've had to remind the foreign person as an interpreter that take your time and listen to this person because this person knows what they're talking about. As a foreigner, I am typically asked, what do I think about Finland? So I'll tell it. I mean, one of my favorite things is that things work here. And this is actually something in Finland that is often forgotten, how well things work here. The things that are complained about are things that are, you know, there's so many things that work here that, things like, let's see, so paying things like electronically, snow cleaning, the health system. I mean, just try living in the US for a year using the health system and you'll be happy to come back to Finland. Although I guess when we're talking about things working, I won't go into the Pendolino, coming from Tampere this morning. There is also, in Finland, there's a homogeneous way of what the right way to do things is, the right way to behave, and it's something that newcomers don't always understand. Let me see if I can. So this is waiting for a bus in Finland. You've probably seen this picture before. In the middle of winter, you would expect everybody to be huddled underneath that, but there's an equal distance between them. And I suppose if somebody new comes in between, they'll shift a little bit. But this is, I mean, this is actually normal and accepted. This is the way it is, and it's actually quite funny to both foreigners and Finns that it is this way. But, so this is my experience coming here, bringing my own pool of diversity into this mix. Diversity in society brings change. Change often feels uncomfortable. I'm glad I'm able to hear, to know enough about the language to hear and speak with Finns about how they're experiencing the change. Since I came 20 years ago to the point now, I have already seen a lot of change that's happened in Finland since that point. The opposite of diversity is isolation. So if the country chooses not to be diverse, then you're isolated. And with isolation, you might feel comfortable for a while, but you cannot sell to other cultures if you don't know what they find important. You have to understand those things. So I would admit to you that I do not know what's important in Nigeria or Chile or Dubai, but if I would need to know something for my business to do something there, I would go find somebody from that country and join her or him into the mix of people who are bringing things there. Because I realized from going country to country that I do not know what is best there until you spend some time there. So back to products, where I started. Another thing from my experience is that Finns are also very great at making products. They're very practical, the products, and they make a lot of sense. But then what happens? And now I include myself in this. We wait. We make the product and we wait. We put up a great looking website with a .fi ending on the end. In the great big pool of the internet, that's a very small drop. Or we set ourselves a goal saying we should prove this in Finland first, and then we can take it abroad. So the Finnish market is probably the size of a few cities in the US. It's a very small place, and if you really want to get out, you could go to a foreign country and take it there, or you could get somebody from that country, get to know somebody from that country, and have them bring it there. So you've heard some of these stories as well today. My main message here as a person who has come to Finland, I guess if you say a talent, which means you actually know how to do something, to my compatriots, other foreigners living in Finland and working in Finland, kyllä sinä tähän pystyt. You can do this. It's possible to learn the language, it's possible to find a job, it's possible to contribute to this society. It takes time. To small and medium-sized companies, ei tämä niin vaikea ole. So it's not difficult. It's not that difficult to hire foreign workers. You have to think about the benefits. There's a phrase that everybody knows. It's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know. And you can also extend that to say it's who your friends know. So if you have somebody in your group who has a bigger network, you've just expanded your own. So I'm going to end this actually with a call to action. You, that's an English word, which could mean you or you, but in Finnish you can say sinä tai te, so I'm using sinä, you, individually. Get to know someone new this month, someone you don't know yet. Perhaps over a cup of coffee. Tell about yourself, share something. It won't work out always that you will continue that conversation. You might not hit it off or even talk to that person ever again. That's okay, but you're almost guaranteed to learn something from that person. And the result is going to be curiosity, and curiosity will always lead to conversation and then trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly was right. Before we have closing words from the brilliant people who arranged this, one final call to action or exercise, if you might get up, please, everyone. Now, we saw the great photo that Michael, you showed about Finnish people. You stand like this. I want you to all get awkwardly close to the person next to you. Take out your phone. Take out your phone, yeah, you take out your phone. And get kind of close, like awkwardly close. I think you can still, we can all do better, Yeah, in the back, yeah. I see all of you, okay. Then you go into selfie mode. And now you're all smiling, and talking about a Finnish, no, we're gonna get there. Put up the phone, and look awkward as hell. You have to really act, you have to find this awkward look in your face. And then when I count to 3, you just press the button. 1, 2, 3. Now you have a beautiful memory of this event. It was hopefully not awkward, it was awesome, inspiring. And I believe if you don't have a photo, it didn't happen actually. Hopefully, you can share this photo with your new friend. And remember this moment. Thank you, Mike Kelly, so much. But now I'd like to welcome on stage some people. Laura Lindemann and Heli Kontulainen from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment. Markku Lahtinen, Annina Mandelin, Mari Taverne, Eero Miettinen, Anna Kinne, Pipa Tuvanen. You can come on stage and closing arguments.
Okay, dear all Talent Boost people, Talent Boost superheroes who are still here. I see something in front of me. I see Finland 2.0. Finland is turning 100 years soon. And I think that now what we are facing is that Finland is getting more international, inclusive. I think that we are kind of in that moment where we are creating new Finland, and you are totally part of that. I have felt it today. And we talked quite a lot about ecosystems today, how we should have talent attraction and retention management ecosystem. That's something that we try to achieve with the Talent Boost program that the government and cities have initiated. But it's nothing without all of you. So I think that we are all Talent Boost people here. And I hope that we continue using Talent Boost hashtag, and you organize Talent Boost events wherever you go. I know that some of you have already taken initiatives for that. Great. But I really want to
thank for first of all the colleagues that we have or what we have created today. I think that's already something that cities and ministry work together, and Chamber of Commerce is on board. And next time, because I think that we will have Talent Boost Summit 2018, I can almost promise you that. I just need to negotiate of the budget first. But anyway, we can be creative with that. So I invite you all to build that. I also want to thank all the speakers and facilitators of today and all the innovators, volunteers who have been helping to create today for us. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of you, because you have made the day. And well, we're already taking pictures and selfies, but I would like to have one for a selfie before we go with all of you and all of you. This was guided from our communication department that I should do that, so I will try my best.
I think the photo would be better if we would all get in the front. Everybody get together.
Saako projektori? Hyvä. Everybody get in. Not yet, there's people coming. Hold your smile. Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Talent Boost! I think that's it.
See you in the Talent Boost Summit 2018.